to the Fantasy Source Baseball Podcast. My name is David A. Arnott, sitting here with Bill Bender, and today we have, I guess the theme of the show today is myths, commonly accepted myths that for some reason or other have just developed. Now, in the case of the Kansas City Royals closer, there's good reason for that belief to be there, that Joakim Soria, am I saying his name correctly? I think so. He's going to come back at some point. There shouldn't be any reason why he can't come back, because he's been so amazing the past few years, until you start digging a little bit deeper and start thinking about who he actually is. But we're going to start with some starting pitchers, and that's the Baltimore Orioles starting pitchers. For some reason, as you've identified and convinced me of now that I've been looking for it and on message boards and such, there's this belief that the Baltimore Orioles starting pitchers are a really good bet.
They are. I mean, I think it's because a lot of them are 25 and younger, with the exception of Jeremy Guthrie. It starts with Brian Mattis, who's coming off the disabled list tomorrow, and he's set up for a fast start because he's going to be pitching against the Mariners and Athletics in his first two starts. So I expect the hype with him, based on what he did last year with his K-9 rate, to grow exponentially over the next couple weeks. But that's where I would have to tell owners to be a little bit careful.
So, in addition, we're looking at, let's see here, Zach Britton has a 2.93 ERA and 38 strikeouts already. He's 23 years old. What is it about him that makes you perhaps give pause?
Well, I like him because he's a solid left-hander. I mean, before Sunday's outing against the Athletics, where he allowed 6 runs, he was ranked second among lefties in ERA. And that's pretty impressive when you consider some of the other lefties in the league, like David Price and guys like that. And he's been brilliant at home, 3-1 with a 1.91 ERA. So I like those things. Again, though, as Sunday proved, once you start trusting him, he gets blown up by the Athletics. But long-term, I actually kind of like him based on the fact that he's pitching well. And kind of the feather in his cap is he had 1 run in 13 innings against the Yankees and Red Sox. So that says he can compete against the big boys in the division.
Now, are you basically saying that that the signs point to being a little bit more sustainable with him?
They do, but I also like Mattis. I like those guys pretty much even, whereas like with Chris Tillman and Jake Arrieta, those are 2 more guys that fantasy owners are always picking up and dropping off the waiver wire and always expecting too much of. And at the end of the day, you got to remember, Baltimore ranks 26th in team ERA. They have a 4.43 team ERA. They've had a lousy bullpen for about, I don't know how many years. So your wins are hard to come by because they're not going to finish ahead of the Yankees, Red Sox, or even the Blue Jays or Rays anytime soon.
Now, let's move to the Royals. I teased them a little bit earlier. Soria has blown his 5th save. He's out as closer. Even if it's just temporary, this is mind-blowing to fantasy owners who have come to rely on him, I think, I've seen, as an elite closer, kind of guy you want because he gets strikeouts, he gets results, something like 3 years straight now. But I'll throw this out there. He's still young, and I think that this is really just an illustration of the variability and whim of chance that happens with relief pitchers, closers especially.
Well, Eric Ferguson wrote a nice piece today on the Fantasy Source, his weekly column, Deep Thoughts, and he talked about Soria and the reasons why he's not doing well. And it's pretty simple. He's not keeping the ball in the ballpark. He's given up 4 or 5 home runs already, or 4 home runs, and he gave up 4 home runs all of last season. So given that, he probably needs a breather. And that breather is going to be Aaron Crow, who everybody's going to be picking up in the next couple days, a youngster out of Missouri, former first-round pick.
Well, you should have already picked him up.
In this office, he's gone because we have so many Mizzou grads running around. But, he has the 26 Ks and 27 innings. But I still think it's a short-term fix. And I think, as Ferguson will point out in that column, Soria is a guy that maybe he just has to work a few things out mechanically, keep the ball in the ballpark, and you'll see him close again, whether it's for the Royals or another team at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to make the argument that it's something that nobody who doesn't have access to game tape really, and the will to sit there through it, would be able to spot is what's wrong with Soria now. Because, or like I said, it could just be luck. I mean, Aaron Crow, to my mind, despite his success this season in a setup role, I mean, longer term, it doesn't look like he's a real solution considering his ERA was over 5 last year in the minors.
Right, and that's something we're going to find out real quick if he can survive in the ninth inning. But the trend this season has kind of been guys like Jordan Walden, guys like Craig Kimbrell. These youngsters are coming in and doing well in a closer role. There might be something to that. But like I said, I think Soria is a guy that he has a sustained record. It could just be a hiccup in his career, and I think we'll see him close again. So don't get rid of him in any leagues. If you own Crow, that's fine, but just make sure you have Soria backing him up or as a handcuff, because I think that's a fluid situation moving forward.
Now, as we continue talking about young pitchers, and this is one of our favorite pet theories in the office, is that young players are more exciting than old players, even though you probably should trust those older players more than those young players. Jordan Lyle, an Astros prospect, has got the call up. He's going to pitch, starting pitcher. What do you see in him? What do you foresee his performance being?
Well, I remember way back in the offseason writing the Astros preview, and he was the prospect I focused on. He jumped out as the top prospect in the Houston system. And he's got 41 Ks in 59 innings at Class AAA Round Rock. I love saying Round Rock. And I think he's a guy at 6'4". He's going to be an imposing presence on the mound. He's somebody I think fantasy owners should watch closely tonight as he pitches against the Cubs, kind of get a feel for what he's all about. He may not be an impact fantasy pitcher this year, but I think he could be a spot start type, maybe move into the back end of the rotation and build some momentum for next season.
Now, just at first glance, those 41 strikeouts in 59 innings doesn't look particularly impressive, even if it is in AAA at a place that, if I recall correctly, is pretty good for hitters. But what I want to know is if you could expand a little bit on larger issues. I think that kind of ties into what you were saying about the Orioles, which is that, you know what, you still have to remember that this guy, as much hype as he's getting, he's still just breaking into the major leagues. I mean, even someone like Tim Lincecum, I think his first start, he only threw 5 innings and walked like 5 guys and had 6 strikeouts or something like that. It takes a while for guys to get acclimated.
Well, yeah, and some young pitchers are having success. I mean, we've been spoiled by guys like David Price, Steven Strasburg, even before he had the elbow injury. They came in and were lights out right away, and right away you're thinking phenom. When you get a whole bunch of these guys coming around, they are new, they're exciting, they're fun to own, and they're fun to take chances on, but you're still going to get better value probably out of a veteran pitcher that nobody really wants to pick up, that's just kind of there, and we all know who we're talking about. You know,
no need to say names.
You can name 50 guys, but that's how you should handle these guys moving forward. And like I said, it's okay to be excited about them, but just be careful in not banking too much on these guys.
All right, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.